Welcome to this explainer. Okay, if you're looking for a slow, traditional agenda today, you won't find it here. We're skipping all that formalities to dive straight into a story that is just as enigmatic as it is profoundly beautiful. We are going to explore the life, the deep mystery, and the enduring philosophy of a man who quite literally changed the course of spiritual literature forever. So get comfortable and let's dive right in.
Think about this for a second. How does a wandering dervish, a guy widely accused by his own society of being mad, end up inspiring the absolute greatest love poetry in human history? I know, it sounds like the setup for a historical fiction novel, right? But it's completely true. Today, we're unpacking the story of Shams Tabrizi. He is the ultimate unconventional, completely disruptive protagonist. Honestly, without Shams, the world would have never known the legendary poet Rumi as we know him today. He was the mysterious catalyst behind it all.
Okay, let's get into this. Section 1, The Wandering Dervish. To really grasp his massive legacy, we have to roll the clock back and start chronologically with the man himself long before he became this famous spiritual mentor.
So Shams al-Din was born in Tabriz in the year 1185. But his life? It was anything but ordinary right from day one. Historical sources tell us that at just 10 years old, he started experiencing these incredibly intense divine visions. And when he shared these profound experiences with his dad, his own father completely rejected him. His family just didn't believe him. This rejection acted as a massive turning point for him. It pushed Shams to leave home and basically become a total wanderer. And he took this wandering to the extreme. The texts say he rarely slept in the same place for more than a single night. Up until 1244, he just roamed from town to town, making a living by interpreting dreams and reading palms for a few coins.
And you can imagine, society's reaction to him was, well, it was fascinating. Because he claimed to speak directly with God and the angels during these visions, and because he lived this completely nomadic, rugged lifestyle reading palms, people didn't exactly see a profound mystic. Instead, they called him Majnun, which translates to crazy or mad. Society completely misread him. They just couldn't reconcile his deep spiritual insights with his wandering, unkempt exterior.
But hey, a wandering mystic can only stay in the shadows for so long. This brings us to Chapter 2, the meeting that changed history. Everything shifts dramatically in the year 1244 when Shams finally arrives in the city of Konya. And this brilliantly illustrates what happened next. See, before 1244, Jalal al-Din al-Rumi was this very traditional, very conventional cleric and religious scholar. But then he meets Shams. And right following that encounter, boom, Rumi completely transforms into the passionate poet, the committed mystic, and the global preacher of love that we know today. Shams was literally the spark that ignited Rumi's genius. It's a radical, almost unbelievable before and after shift in Rumi's entire identity. So what actually went down between these two men? Well, the answer really boils down to the number 40. The sources tell us that Shams and Rumi went into complete seclusion together for 40 days in Konya. This wasn't just, a casual hangout. It was a highly intense, deeply transformative period of spiritual exchange. And it was during this exact 40-day retreat that the foundational ideas for the now famous 40 Rules of Love were birthed. But as profound and world-changing as that connection was, it was incredibly short-lived. After just about 3 years of this intense friendship, the relationship came to a sudden, dramatic, and honestly tragic halt. Let's look at a darker chapter in our explainer. Chapter 3, The Mystery of Disappearance.
In the year 1248, Shams Tabrizi vanished. He just vanished under highly mysterious circumstances, leaving us with this crazy historical true crime puzzle. The historical texts basically give us 3 main theories. Theory 1 suggests a really dark end. Was he murdered by Rumi's own disciples who had grown super jealous of Shams's influence over their teacher? Theory 2 suggests he maybe just fled in secret, perhaps sneaking back to Damascus where he had traveled before. And Theory 3 posits that he simply left Konya and died naturally of old age in the city of Koi. Now, we aren't here to definitively solve a 13th century cold case today, but it is pretty fascinating how his exit from history is just as mysterious as his entrance.
Regardless of how he died, though, his physical legacy is heavily honored today. There's this huge prominent memorial and tomb for Shams in the city of Koi, complete with a memorial tower set in a really beautiful garden. Actually, his resting place has even been nominated to become a UNESCO World Heritage Site. So, while his end remains a total mystery, his historical footprint is absolutely undeniable.
All right, this brings us to what I think is the most important part of our explainer today. We're shifting gears from the biographical mystery into his absolutely gorgeous philosophical legacy. Let's dive into Chapter 4, the core rules of love, and break down these central teachings that have somehow survived the centuries.
Now, obviously, Shams left behind the famous 40 rules of love. But don't worry, we are not going to sit here and read off a massive 40-point list. That would get old fast. Instead, I've taken his incredibly dense philosophy and synthesized it down into 3 core, really digestible themes: the inner mirror, the value of pain, and the universality of love. Let's unpack these one by one.
Let's start with the concept of the inner mirror. His very first rule states a super powerful truth. How we see God is a reflection of how we see ourselves. Think about that. If we approach life with fear and blame, well, that's exactly what we're going to see reflected back at us. But if we're filled with love and mercy, that is the universe we will experience. This builds right into Rule 18, where Shams actually teaches that everything, even the people you completely despise and literally even the devil himself, they aren't these external forces attacking you. Nope. They are internal voices. They're reflections of your own inner state. So to know yourself completely, both the dark and the light, is to truly know the divine.
And this deep internal reflection brings us right to our second major theme, the value of pain. Shams taught that love is perfected by pain. It's kind of like how clay needs intense heat and fire to finally harden and take its permanent shape. In his 11th rule, he uses this stunning metaphor of a midwife. A midwife knows that if a pregnant woman doesn't feel the pain of labor, the child just cannot be born. The path hasn't opened yet. It's the same for us. For a new spiritual self to be born within you, there has to be suffering. It is the necessary catalyst for spiritual rebirth.
So the crucial point here is perfectly captured in Rule 4, which contrasts the mind and the heart. The human intellect, our minds, it's constantly cautious, right? It ties us in knots, always warning us to be careful, avoid risk, stay safe. But love, Shams argues that love dissolves all knots. Where the intellect resists breaking down at all costs, love easily shatters and turns to rubble. But Shams reminds us, and this is key, it is exactly within the rubble of a broken heart that you find the absolute greatest hidden treasures.
Wow. Okay, as we reach the final chapter of our explainer today, Chapter 5, in Immortal Legacy, we have to ask, what is the ultimate takeaway here? Why does a wandering dervish from the 13th century still matter so much to you and me today?
Well, in his 40th and final rule, Shams puts it pretty bluntly. He says, a life without love is of no account. He's basically warning us not to get bogged down in labels. Don't worry about whether the love you're seeking is spiritual or material, divine or worldly, from the east or the west. You know, divisions only breed more divisions. Love, he says, has no labels, no boundaries, no definitions. It's pure, it's simple, and it's literally the water of life. Shams Tabrizi's legacy is a massive, timeless call to tear down our walls of division and just embrace a universal, completely transformative love.
Which brings us to a lingering question drawn right out of his 38th rule. Are you ready to change your life from the inside? Shams tells us that even if you only have one single day left to live, you have to renew yourself with every single breath. The only way to truly live a new life is to let your old self pass away. So I want you to take a moment today to really reflect on that. Let the philosophy of this wandering dervish challenge you. Thank you so much for joining me on this incredible journey through the history and the heart of Shams Tabrizi. Until next time, keep reflecting, keep questioning, and keep learning.